We're very excited that our October presentation is from Jack.org. Jack.org is Canada's largest network of young people supporting young people, offering youth a place to safely learn about mental health, support their peers, seek professional support, and advocate for a future where you thrive in mental wellness. So we've got two speakers here with us today. I will start with Quincy. Quincy is the design lead for programs where she blends evidence-informed practice and creativity into Jack.org's youth programming. With a background in sports psychology and community health, Quincy is passionate about the connection between mental health, movement, and our environment. Outside of work, you can often find her running and in nature or taking on a new DIY project. We also joining us today have Alexandra. Alexandra is the program manager at Jack.org, where she designs and scales youth-focused mental health initiatives and programs across Canada for youth aged 14 to 26. Alex is particularly passionate about creating inclusive, human-centered programs that respond to community needs, center lived experience, and drive meaningful change for young people. When she's not working, Alex is often spending time with her 14-year-old puppy, reading a book, and attempting to bake. I love that. So thank you for joining us today. We were very interested today in hosting a session that really focused on youth and mental health, as we had celebrated in October World Youth Mental Health Day. So I will give the floor over to our speakers today, and then following their presentation, we'll open up the floor back to question and answer.
Right. I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. Make sure that everybody can see that. Amazing. Okay. Perfect. So, yeah, thank you everybody so much for joining us here. Um, Leora already introduced us beautifully, but just a quick introduction. Again, my name is Alexandra. My pronouns are she, her. And as Leora said, I am the manager for youth community programming here at Jack.org. So I oversee our talks, chapters, and youth engagement portfolio. And I'll pass it over to Quincy.
Hi, my name is Quincy. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the lead program designer for our programs that Alexandra oversees. So I am helping out with the design with the talks and the communities programs. Perfect. Before we get started, folks, I would like to take the time to acknowledge that I have the privilege of living, working, and playing on the traditional ancestral Coast Salish territories. This is colonially known as Vancouver. So these stolen, unsurrendered lands are home to Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations since time immemorial. And when we have these discussions about mental health programs and engaging with our youth, I think it's really important to keep in mind how the violence of colonialism and cultural erasure is ongoing and still affecting the wellness of our Indigenous youth. So please take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous lands from where you are joining us today, as well as keep in mind how the education of Indigenous history and culture are essential to supporting and understanding the intricacies of our youth mental health. I encourage you to find ways to practice commitment to building harmonious relationships to the lands across Turtle Island in pursuit of meaningful reconciliation. So, thank you. And today, what we're going to be focusing on, so we did our welcome, our land acknowledgement. We're going to provide you an overview of jack.org itself, and then we'll go over in-person programming and our digital programming as well.
Amazing. All right. So just a little bit about Jack.org. Laura obviously talked a little bit about us already, but Jack.org is Canada's largest network of young leaders working to empower youth mental health. We were founded in 2010 by the Windler family, and since then, Jack.org has been pioneering innovative youth-led solutions that empower young people to ideally take charge of their mental health and well-being. We started out as just a pilot event for youth, and it has since grown into a really thriving nationwide network of youth change makers across each coast, province, and territory. So today we have thousands of young people who are part of our community. They share insights, they build support systems, and ideally creating a country where mental health conversations are normalized, inclusive, and empowering. So overall, our vision is ideally that we can create a world where youth are mentally healthy and not in distress. And our mission to achieve this vision is to work alongside youth to build communities and advocate for equitable systems that support their mental health needs. And we do this by empowering young people to understand mental health, support their peers, and drive systemic change. So throughout all of our work and all of our programs, I think it's really important for us to acknowledge some of the principles that drive this work and drive our vision and mission and vision, sorry. So we have four key principles in mind. So first is youth front and center, meaning that young people are at the core of everything that we do. And we really try to understand the lived experience of youth, and particularly those who have been historically excluded or silenced. And this is a regular, deliberate, and integrated practice. And alongside young people, we create space for youth to support one another. We ensure that they're co-designing our programs and then also championing our strategies and policies that reflect their experience and their expertise, especially because those experiences and expertise are often ignored, especially in advocacy spaces, policy spaces, and spaces where adults are the ones driving a lot of the change. So we believe that belonging builds community. And community is very much a protective factor for mental health. So we want to create safe communities and ones that are, again, built in this shared experience or concerns and priorities where trust and safety are present. So really what this means for us as well is that um, the youth are reflecting their community's needs and the type of work that they want to do. And as we create and conduct our programming, it's we center these diverse lived experiences, and acknowledge that it is 100% essential to the work that we do. We ideally try to prioritize anti-oppressive, intersectional, identity affirming, and culturally relevant practices in our work because we know that these are absolutely essential to young people's mental health to thrive. And in that same vein, we seek to set the table for collaboration and enter spaces with a lot of humility and commitment to listening to the needs of our partners and of our youth as we work to build a better future. So, uh, just this one stat, I think it's one stat that we've kind of used throughout our existence at jack.org, and it's one that constantly centers the work that I think that we do and just is a good reminder and driver of why we do the work that we do at jack.org as well. And that's that 1 in 5 Canadian youth and young people under the age of 25 do experience a mental illness or mental struggle. And symptoms of mental illness typically begin before the age of 18, with about 70% of adults with a mental illness will have their first symptom before this age as well. And this is an increasing number because between the years of 2019 and 2023, a significant portion of youth have reported a decline in their mental health. Um, where 1 in 5 youth who previously rated their mental health as good or better now feel that it's either fair or poor, which leads to this being suicide as the second leading cause of death for people aged 15 to 34. But I honestly think that in this group, we all know that mental health is a serious challenge that youth are facing, and this is hopefully where we come in with our prevention and upstream model of programming. So, uh, I think one of the questions is like that we encounter a lot is what exactly is youth mental health? And to answer this question and how we approach it, I I thought that it was a good idea to kind of look first at a widely accepted psychological framework that we use, and it's called the interpersonal theory of suicide. So, this theory identifies three core feelings that lead to a desire for suicide. So, there's thwarted belongingness, where people feel like they're alone and isolated, perceived burdensome, where they believe that they are a burden to either their friends, their family members, society, where they just don't feel like they're contributing. And then this again leads to the capability for suicide. And we recognize that for youth in the child welfare system, which a lot of you are obviously involved in, the experiences of loss and instability and systemic barriers can amplify these feelings of isolation and feeling like a burden. And this is exactly where Jack.org steps in by building these opposite experiences. There we go. So, our framework is designed to directly counteract these core feelings, and we focus on two primary outcomes, which you see on the screen: belonging and empowerment. So, belonging answers the question or the statement, I'm not alone with, or sorry, it answers the statement, I am alone with I'm not alone. And then an empowerment would again flip the idea of I am a burden to I am not a burden. And this focus on belonging and empowerment truly is at the foundation of everything we do, leading to a reduced desire for suicide and a reduced risk of that. And our youth framework is built on the belief that the greatest agents of change for young people are themselves and other young people. I think that a lot of the time, even if you think to when you were a youth, the last person that you probably wanted to hear from or that you always wanted to talk to was a parent or a guardian or a teacher or somebody who you couldn't really relate to. And this is where we really believe in like peer-to-peer education, contact-based education, peer-to-peer mentorship, so that when we talk, so that they are able to relate to people their age and really build off of the resilience of others as well. And I think that it's also important for us to acknowledge that when we talk about youth mental health, we're not just talking about mental illness, because I think that's still a very pervasive stereotype that exists. We really see mental health on a broad spectrum, and we want to move past this traditional reactive model of you're either sick or you're well. A lot more to it than just that. So youth mental health is about a young person's overall emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And it's the capacity to be able to really navigate life's challenges, form healthy relationships, thrive in their environments, and contribute to their community. And for the young people you support who often face systemic adversity, good mental health means having the internal resources and external supports to manage distress, cope with trauma, and believe in their own future. And it's about being mentally healthy, not in distress, which again circles back to our mission and vision. And our focus is the development of resources that will be able to contribute to this. Okay, so our four main programs that we have at Jack.org, like I said, were explicitly designed for upstream prevention. If clinical care and crisis response are downstream interventions, treating the illness when it actually hits, we're focused on upstream or eliminating the conditions that lead to severe distress in the first place. So hopefully we don't want youth to ever feel like they are lonely or like they are a burden. We want to try and stop those feelings before they happen. And we do this through working on two key pillars. So first is skill-based prevention, and this is individual and peer level. And this is really about equipping youth with tangible, practical skills so that they can intervene effectively before a small struggle exacerbates and becomes a crisis. Quincy will talk a lot more in depth about our specific programs, but one of the examples of skills-based prevention is our Be There certificate. It's about creating a mental health literate generation who can confidently and safely support their peers. And then the second pillar that we rely on is structural prevention. And this really dives in at the community and systemic level. And it's about changing the environment and the systems that we exist in to foster belonging and empowerment. So, for example, again, Quincy will go on to our programs, but we have our Jack chapters. And ideally, these are groups where people can come together, can talk about their shared lived experiences and really build resilience with one another. And ideally, these chapters will go on to have a platform where they can lead change, advise staff, and speak about these lived experiences in a much larger way. But at the heart of all of our programming as well is youth engagement. We need to be able to engage youth effectively in order for them to actually be interested in our programming. So peer-to-peer mentorship and education, contact-based learning are a large portion of what forms our programming, and therefore we have a couple of ways that we actually engage with youth specifically. So first, we have our Jack Talk speaker program. Um, and this is where we have youth aged 18 to 26 who deliver Jack Talks and they focus on their lived experience. Many of these youth have experience with either a mental struggle or a mental health crisis. Some of them are living with anxiety, depression, PTSD, any form of mental illness. And then we also have our Youth Voice Council, and these are 20 youth aged 18 to 26 who actually work with us throughout the course of the year to develop programming and adjust our programming based on what they're seeing as young people. And this ensures that youth perspective is really embedded into our work. And then finally, we have two network advisors. Now, these network advisors are normally two people who have kind of gone through all of our programming and eventually evolve into these big leadership roles. And they actually sit on the board of directors and our mental health and advocacy committee, and they help to really drive where we go strategically. Our CEO, Michael, is in the room, so he gets to chat with them quite a bit as well, which is always lovely. But I think really guiding this work and our youth engagement strategy is a simple mantra of nothing for youth without youth. And this means that young people with lived experience are not just the audience, they're our leaders, our co-creators, and advisors for every aspect of our work. So when we create new programming, we get them to do it with us. When we want to develop new talk content, we get the opinions on what's on their minds. And when we, even our social media, like we pay them to create the content with us so that every aspect of this organization is touched by a young person's perspective. Okay, now to dive into our programs a little bit more, I'm going to pass it off to Quincy.
Thanks, Alex. So as Alex mentioned, one of our programs we run here are our Jack Talks, and this is one of the ways that we can really implement this peer-to-peer education in our community. So Jack Talks are mental health presentations that are delivered by trained youth speakers, again, ages 18 to 27, who use the power of storytelling to make mental health knowledge and learning about mental health a little bit more relatable. So by empowering these young leaders to share how they can navigate, how they've navigated their own mental health challenges, we really can help youth audiences learn how to recognize the signs of mental health struggle, learn how to reach out for support in their own communities, and then also support their own mental health and others in their community within their own youth context. Um, so we have a couple of different Jack Talk offerings. So we have three. It's the keynote, the foundations, and the conversations. The first one being the keynote is kind of our large auditorium. It's TEDx inspired style presentations. These keynote presentations have a strong focus on using this storytelling and this lived experience as a way to educate on these larger mental health topics. So these topics include the mental health struggle, generalized anxiety disorder, and major depressive disorder. And like Alex had mentioned, a lot of these speakers that we have trained have experience in these specific topics. So they're able to share their own experiences as a way to relate to the audience, and help them really understand, a youth perspective of these bigger mental health topics. The second one is our foundations. These ones are medium-sized talks. They focus on mental health literacy and more around applying skills with mental health. So these are education focused. Like I said, they're medium-sized groups. And this kind of size allows for some engagement between the speaker and the audience. We have three topics that organizers can choose from. We have Mental Health 101, how to be there for others, and how to be there for ourselves. And what's really interesting about our foundations talk is that we actually have different levels that can be applied to the uh, how the level of mental health literacy that the audience might have. So with Mental Health 101, you can start with just learning the basics about what mental health is, what is a mental illness. And then once there is that really good foundation of mental health, there's actually a 1.2 for our Mental Health 101, where they actually start learning how to apply these certain skills or recognize different mental health illnesses in a deeper context. And then on top of these topics, we also add certain themes that might fit with a certain community, or maybe an interest that the audience might have. So we have academic pressure, social media literacy, which has been a really popular one with a lot of our high school students, and then body image and eating disorders. And then finally, we have our conversations. So these are more classroom inspired workshops, type talks. There's high engagement. They're usually less than 25 people. And we really focus on the skill building aspect within these conversations. So there's hands-on activities. We really lean into intergroup discussions that explore the mental health topics. And by allowing our students and the audience to engage in this deeper manner, they can also explore the topics that we have in a more discussion-based platform. So these types of these topics include self-care, performance-based self-worth, identity and culture, and being there for yourself and others. Our Jack Talks are a really great program that we see across the country, being something that a lot of educators and a lot of communities are looking for. This year, our pool of youth that we have trained is over 110. Which is such a big speaker pool for this year, which is really awesome. And that'll allow them to deliver approximately 150 talks this year over the country or across the country. So that's really exciting. The next branch of program that we have is our Jack communities. And this is a way that we can really engage our youth and meet them where they are. So our Jack communities program focuses on empowering young people to build community. They do this by, leading mental health promotion initiatives in the spaces where they live, they learn, they connect with each other. We're able to share our resources, help them find their own community, resources, and support our youth to help and help them create this safe, inclusive space where they feel safe and their peers feel safe and supported to, take further action on mental health and in their community. So the way that we do this is with our Jack chapters and Jack champions. So Alex had actually mentioned the Jack chapters before, but essentially what our chapters are these youth-led groups that create spaces for connection, that belonging for young people. We tier them to meet youth again where they're at in terms of their own goals with mental health advocacy and community building. And all the tier model really means is that we provide certain resources that will match the certain goals that they have. So, some chapters that we have are really just focused on creating that safe space for youth to gather. Maybe it's an after school program or it's during lunch. And they just bring them together, are able to connect, open up a discussion about mental health. And so our resources will match that focus. Whereas we have others who are in our post-secondary chapters who are really focused on building change in the community. Their advocacy work looks into government change and systemic change as well. So a lot of our resources will help them support them in that type of journey. Um, and like I said, our chapters focus on these inclusive spaces for youth to connect with each other. And you can find these in high schools and our post-secondary schools. A lot of campus-based programs have a chapter as well, which is really great. And they not only learn about mental health, but they focus on the advocacy work and the mental health issues that really matter to them and the ones in their community. So we really like to empower our youth to focus on what their community specifically needs, and we work with them to help support them with that. Um, and kind of our goal with our Jack chapters is by fostering this belonging and breaking down this stigma, helping them drive that change at the community level. Hopefully we're able to give our youth the tools they need to bring this advocacy work beyond them being young people. So into their work, into other communities as well, and where they are able to gather with folks, whether that be with sports teams in community, like a library, things like that. And essentially, in turn, hopefully that really deepens the connection with the youth in their community. So that's Jack Chapters. Something new that we have this year is our Jack Champions. Our Jack Champions, they have similar goals to our chapters. However, champions are more so groups that aim to bring mental health promotion and those types of initiatives into a space where youth are already connecting. So they're not building from the ground up. They have a group of youth that they want to bring our type of programming into. So this can be, sports teams, cultural organizations, youth centers. And like I said, it aims at bringing Jack.org's mental health resources into these existing spaces. Um, Champions have initiatives that reach young people where they already gather, so you don't have to be pulling, folks who might not be interested in mental health. We want to make sure that we're reaching folks who wouldn't be looking at this type of programming anyway, but they're meeting together already. And by creating this type of flexible model, we hope to reduce that barrier. And it is designed to help more young people, especially those equity deserving youth who might not already have an easy way to access mental health programming. So as that stat says at the bottom of the slide there, we have 176 chapters led by over 2,000 youth, and we reach over 148,000 youth through these events and these initiatives that our chapters and champions run through their community groups. So that's communities. Actually, and then we have a couple more things with the communities as well. So we have the community assessment tool, which is a tool that guides youth through a needs assessment of their community to determine what gaps and assets exist for positive mental health. Yeah, it's a really great tool that we have, especially for those who, maybe don't know where to start with their mental health advocacy. This type of community survey really helps youth understand what those existing barriers are in their community so that they have that deeper understanding to implement and how to implement these initiatives to, address these barriers and break them down. Another aspect of our programming is the community collaboration space. Um, so the community collaboration space are essentially mini conferences with focuses on mental health promotion and mental health education in the community. We really have a strong emphasis with these CCSs to bring groups and organizations together to collaborate on building this event in tandem with Youth Voice. So, they focus on bringing youth into the space, but also they run workshops. There's panel discussions. They bring speakers in. There's different activities that focus on mental health literacy, maybe skill building, and also stigma and harm reduction as well. And these spaces are really great because, we see a lot of our chapters, maybe who only really exist in one high school, being able to branch out further into their community and collaborate with another chapter from another high school, or maybe they collaborate with their local college, and they're able to bring those different levels of youth and young people's voices into the mix. And it's a really fun event for our youth to be able to say, this is a big project that we were able to bring together. And we also collaborated with not only other youth, but other organizations and people who care in our community. So that's a really great part of our programming as well. And with our Jack projects, you might be thinking, so, the youth get this community assessment tool, they run this needs assessment, and then what can they do with it? So that's where our Jack projects come in. So for the youth and the young people who have used the CAT, which is our short term for the community assessment tool, and they, say that they notice that there's certain barriers that they might be able to break down, or there's a certain need and gap in their community that they want to address, they can create a Jack project. And this is a way that we can support our youth to, fund a project to address these gaps. And we also provide a micro grant and support from the staff to help and create and run this project in their community. So those are communities. And then finally, we have our digital programming. So we recognize, youth don't just connect in person, they connect online and they learn online. So we make sure that we also have digital programming accessible to complement these different types of learning levels and abilities. So, as we mentioned before, we have our Be There certificate, which is such a great resource that we have. I love our Be There certificate. It was created by Jack.org in partnership with the Born This Way Foundation. And the BTC is free, it's self-paced, and it's essentially designed to increase mental health literacy. But really equips you with that knowledge, those skills, and the confidence to be able to support people in your life who are struggling with their mental health. In the Be There certificate, you'll find our 5 golden rules. So essentially, the Be There's 5 golden rules help is simple but action-based framework for folks to be there for people in their life. So they walk students through the Be There golden rules, but also give them examples of real life situations and videos of our youth and our young people who were able to either get help in this Be There framework or were able to give help and support someone with the Be There framework. So essentially, the BTC helps folks recognize when someone might be struggling with their mental health, your role in supporting that person and how to connect them to the help that they deserve. And then finally, we have sorry, I just missed the Be There workshop,
Yeah,
Alex.
I have no idea what happened. Is it back on your screen?
Yeah, we're good. All good. Um, So one thing that's really cool about our Be There program is that it is designed for youth, but we do see a lot of our educators, teachers, community leaders have found a lot of value. And so they take the BTC themselves as well, because there is a lot of youth perspective that's woven in there. And so it's really helpful for those leaders who work with young people. So, folks in the room who haven't taken the BTC, it's 2 hours, go ahead, check it out. And then you can be able to take that back into your community and into your work. And then one more thing that we have with Be There are the actual workshops. So the workshops implement basically the same learning and the same objectives of the BTC, but they incorporate a really good in-person component. And similar to being able to have these discussions in person, they allow participants to engage deeper with, the content that we have. And then it also helps translate, from the online into the in-person aspect for different learning styles. Let's Be Their workshop. And then finally, we have the Ed Hub, which is a free resource, a big resource hub for our educators. The resources and the site itself are both really easy to navigate. We've designed it with intention. So these teachers can use the resources as they are. They pick them up, they choose what parts they want to use, and they can implement it right into their curriculum. The whole point of the Ed Hub is to make it barrier free. So you don't have to sign in, it's quick, free, easy access. Educators bookmark it on their tab, and then they can just go in and see everything that is there to offer. So the Ed Hub has two types of resources. It could be ones that you use with your students in your classroom, and then also ones that teachers specifically can use to help engage with their students about mental health safety. There's teaching guides that are the implementation resources. These, again, teach mental health, and we all kind of know that, maybe with these curriculums are so strict and teaching mental health can be pretty challenging. And so we try to provide easy resources with these teaching guides so our educators can brush up on their knowledge, but then also give them confidence to be able to implement mental health into their classroom and create kind of a safer and more supportive classroom in turn. And then we also have our classroom resources. These include unit plans, lessons, activities based on the Be There program. We've aligned them with most of the province's curriculums in Canada, which is really great because, like I said, curriculums can be pretty strict. And so it's really nice for us to be able to provide these types of resources that teachers can just fit in as they see fit. So that's the Ed Hub. And those are our programmings.
Sorry, working with two screens
No,
is
it's all
sometimes
good.
difficult, but yeah, I guess I'll just wrap us up really quickly. So I think to sum everything up in a nutshell is that jack.org is a youth-led movement and organization working to foster belonging and empowerment in young people across Canada. And we ideally provide the tools for youth to become mental health advocates and mental health supporters and peer supporters, directly countering that isolation and sense of burdensome that can lead to distress that we talked about. So, as Quincy said, we encourage you all to look at our resources and the programs online to take the Be There certificate, especially as you continue the vital work that you do. And hopefully see jack.org and the young people who are in it as a resource and a partner in empowering the youth in your care. So that's it from us. I think we've got time for a couple minutes for questions. Oh yeah, 15 minutes. Perfect.
Thank you so much. We'll open it up to, does anybody have any questions or comments they want to speak about? So in the chat, someone's asking for the website. Oh, you're faster than me. Okay, if I can go ahead and start us off with Q&A. So just at StepStones, and those on the call know who we are, but working with children and youth who are exiting out of the foster care system, the child welfare system. And through our intakes of youth over the years, um, our statistics show that 7% of our youth at intake report stable mental health, which obviously shows quite concerning about the mental health. And we know that a lot of these children and youth have experienced significant traumas. So just me sharing that with you is more putting it back to you to ask you, when we're working with them and after learning about the programs that you have here, what would be your best advice to us as an organization in supporting these youth? So obviously there's the introduction to your services, but is there any like key points or takeaways that you could suggest to us in this field?
Yeah, I think that's a really hard question. And I don't
Sure.
know if there's, no, I love it though. But I don't know if there's like necessarily one piece of like golden advice that I could give that be like, yes, this will solve mental health problems in general. But I do think that by and large, and this is something that I'll shout from the rooftops, is that prevention really is key. And I think Michael giving me the thumbs up. Yeah. So prevention and upstream work, ideally that when we engage more in that, when we, put more funding into that, when we promote that more,
Yeah.
when people are more educated, when we reduce stigma, and just allow for those conversations to happen and encourage validation and acceptance of those experiences, I think that's going to be the most important thing. A lot of the time, um, youth really just want to be listened to more than anything, I think. And I think that they want to have a spot or a place where they can feel safe. And I know that that's really hard to create sometimes. And I think that is why things like our chapters are so crucial because it does allow for a spot where youth can come together no matter their background, their lived experience, whatever. But the key to them is that most of the people who are part of these have some sort of mental health struggle or crisis where they can talk about those things and learn from each other. Um, and then I think just education as well, continuing that education. I know that like at the end of a long day when you've like my mom, for example, used to work with CAS. So I remember her coming home from a long day and she would be absolutely exhausted. But for her, like it was always important to just continue to educate herself on on new interventions and new ways to engage with youth. And I do think that the Be There certificate is a really, really good way to do that. So
So we actually have some questions going in the chat right now. So someone's asking here, what is the criteria for youth interested in getting trained?
So it depends on the program specifically, but for like if they wanted to become a youth speaker, the only thing that they need to have is that they're over the age of 18 and ideally have some sort of either lived experience or know somebody who has lived experience with mental health challenges or crisis. And that's it. We really accept everyone. Like our job is to make sure that they feel confident, comfortable, and knowledgeable in order to go into these different classrooms, communities, and organizations and deliver these programs. And then for our chapters, there's absolutely no criteria whatsoever. So anybody who wants to either start a chapter, or get involved in a chapter or share our resources, like all you have to do is email us and we will connect with you right away, or submit an application online. So
Thank you.
hopefully as low barrier as possible.
So there's another question here. I think you've addressed some of it, but just asking in the chat, how can youth get involved? And is there a cost for the presentations?
So, how can youth get involved? I would say that there's like, yeah, there's a number of entry points for youth, but I would say by and large, the best way to start is really through a chapter. So it's by looking at um, your local community, your high school, your post-secondary education wherever this youth might be, and seeing if a chapter exists and joining that chapter. And if there's not one that's there already, then to start one if they have the capacity to do that. But if not, we do have our champions program that Quincy had mentioned that's just starting up as well, where we can share resources. We'll be starting a Discord channel soon as well, which is really exciting, where youth can chat online. So definitely think multiple entry points, needless to say. If they're older, hopefully they would be interested in being a Jack Talk speaker or just attending a talk as well. And then, is there a cost for the presentations? No, they're completely free. I mean, we will always accept donations if you have the budget for it, because obviously it's a lot to be able to train the youth, and then we pay for all of their travel and accommodations as well, so that it's barrier free for them. But yeah, completely free.
Excellent. Thank you. We just have a few more things going in the chat. So for anyone who hasn't been able to see it, Michael, I think he's off the call now, but he was on the call with us. He's the CEO of Jack.org, and he shared here a couple of things in the chat. One is, and what you guys have been talking about, let's stop putting all of our effort into reacting to the crisis in mental health and work upstream with prevention. And I think like you did a really good job today, in speaking about that. And I think, I don't want to, I speak for everyone. I say like we all also want those best outcomes for youth. And that's why this is so important. And we're getting together. He also said that we're looking to work with partners to fund in-person Be There certification for frontline workers so that they are able to be there for the youth they support. So they would love to work with anyone interested on this. Um, so I just wondered the best way to go about this is we've given your website to everyone. Maybe we can follow this up with um, a communication of how to connect with you with jack.org.
Yeah, definitely. So the best way to get in touch just with jack.org in general is to email us. I put it in the chat, just hello@jack.org. So
Excellent.
we very much work with a central service model. So if you email them, then they will be able to direct you to the best spot, whether that's for anything Be There related, Be There certificate related, talks, communities related. Yeah, but if you ever want to message me specifically on anything, I'll put my email in the chat as well. So you have that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So that is, I don't see anything else in the chat. I'm just looking. Um, there's a question here on the certification, and that looking is so would the be their certification?
Yeah.
Sorry, my eyes, it's just small.
No.
Be something that you'd look to offer to caregivers, because this may be of interest, in some of this work that a lot of us do in child welfare. If it were something that would be possible to offer to not just frontline, but to caregivers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's we're trying more and more to support adult allies and those who want to support the youth in their lives better. So absolutely, this is something that we would be looking to offer for caregivers. I think the first thing that I would recommend really is just getting them to start with the online version.
Okay.
If you go to our bethere.org, that's like a good just information on it. And then from there, it can direct you to the actual Be There certificate. So getting them started with that is always really good. And then, yeah, absolutely. Doing in-person workshops is definitely something that we're open to.
And so just so everybody knows, the bethere.org and the certificate links are in the chat. And that's also something that we can share. Just a quick question on that, the links that you sent. Can those be found on the jack.org website as well? Okay, perfect.
Absolutely.
Just because if somebody missed that in the chat, the session was called Jack. jack.org. So anybody will easily access your website for that. Um, I mean, we're getting close to time, but before we wrap up, does anybody else have any questions or comments or anything that anybody would like to share with us or ask of jack.org and the staff here joining us today? Just looking. Okay, well, I want to take this opportunity, Alexandra, Quincy. It has just been an absolute pleasure to have you here. I think all of us can agree with working with youth and the youth that we're working with. Mental health is something that often does come up, and is something that our youth are working on or having some struggles with. So, learning a bit more about the way you guys are working with that, the way peer support is working, the trainings. I think, like for all of us in the sector, this is something very helpful for us to learn about, and just very, very appreciative that you're here today and that you've shared this with us.
Thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to reach out. Love to hear from you.
Excellent.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
well,
Thank
thank you
you.
everyone for joining.